Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend and a happy Easter for those that celebrated. I am excited to start a new week of distance learning. We're starting to get the hang of it, get in a routine, and I'm excited to do another lesson for you all today. Today's lesson is going to build off of Friday's lesson. So if you have not yet done Friday's lesson about multiplying a fraction by a whole number, I want you to do that one before you do this one, because you're going to need that knowledge to get through today's lesson. So today we're going to jump right in with a lesson on multiplying a whole number by a mixed number. So one more step than yesterday's number. I'm going to share my screen and we can get started. So just a quick reminder, anytime you see a stop sign next to the title of the slide, that means you're going to pause your screen on this slide so that you can take this time to solve the problem. So here are 3 quick spiral review problems. I want you to pause your screen and resume it once you are complete, once those 3 problems are completed. And I am going to do a quick review of those. So find the product of 432 and 3. Find the product means to multiply. I'm going to go place by place. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 3 tens is 9 tens. 3 times 400 is 12 hundreds, for an answer of 1,296. Second spiral review question says, what is 3,456 divided by 3? 3 goes into 3 one time. 1 times 3 is 3. Subtract, get 0. Bring down the 4. 3 goes into 4 one time. 1 times 3 is 3. I have 1 left over. Bring down the 5. 3 goes into 15. 5 times 3 is 15. And bring down the 6. 3 goes into 6 2 times, and 2 times 3 is 6. There's nothing left to bring down and nothing left over, so I do not have a remainder. So give yourself a check if you had 1,152 as your answer for number 2. And our third one was Asia walks 2/3 of a mile each day. How far does Asia walk in 7 days? So this is a review from Friday's lesson. Asia has 7 days of doing 2/3. So I'm doing 2/3, 2/3, 2/3, 2/3, 2/3, 2/3, 2/3, 7 times, which is the same as 7 times 2/3. We remember that when we multiply a whole number by a fraction, we multiply the whole number by the numerator, and the denominator doesn't change because we have not changed the size of our pieces or the amount of total pieces. So we have 7 times 2 is 14 thirds, but I know I don't want to leave my answers in improper fraction form. Remember, an improper fraction is where the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So I need to think, how many 3/3 or wholes can I pull out? So 3/3, 6/3, 9/3, 12/3, 15/3 would be too big. So I can only pull out 3, 6, 9, 12/3. And I can pull out 2 more thirds to get 14/3. 12/3 we said was 4 wholes. So my answer here was Asia walks, 4 2/3 miles. If this was challenging for you, I suggest you go back and rewatch Friday's lesson and try to get a little more practice on this, because we are going to be using this part today when we take it one step harder with mixed numbers. I'm going to share my screen back so we can work on today's application problem. All right, today's problem says Jeremy ran 27 laps on a track that was 1/8 of a mile long. Jimmy ran 15 laps on a track that was 1/4 of a mile long, and we have to figure out who ran farther. So I'm going to have to do some separate work for Jeremy and Jimmy and then compare their answers. This is tying in a lot of what we've been working on and is a really great problem to make sure you've been understanding the last few lessons. So everybody pause your screen, take the time that you need, and then go ahead and resume once you have an answer to this application problem. All right, and I'm going to quickly go over this for you. So we have Jeremy ran 27 laps on a track that was 1/8 of a mile long. So Jeremy ran 1/8 27 times. That's Jeremy. I'm actually going to be smaller because I forgot I have to do Jeremy and Jimmy. So Jeremy did 27 laps of 1/8. And to solve for that, I'm going to do 27 times 1, and they're going to stay eighths. And I'm going to get 27 eighths. I want to go through and pull out my holes. So I know I need to skip count by 8. 8, 16, 24, 32. 32 was too big. So I was able to pull out 3 holes of 8 eighths. And that was 24 eighths. So 25 eighths, 26 eighths, 27 eighths. I have 3 eighths left over. So we would say that Jeremy ran 3 3/8 of a mile. But then we had Jimmy. And they said that Jimmy did 15 laps on a track that was 1/4 of a mile long. So Jimmy did less laps, but his track was a little bit longer. So we'll see if he ran more or less than Jeremy. So he did 15 at 1/4 of a mile. When I multiply that, I get 15 times 1. Denominator stays fourths. And I'm getting 15 fourths. So this time I'm going to do some skip counting by 4 fourths. 4 fourths, 8 fourths, 12 fourths, 16 fourths was too many. I only had 15. So I was able to pull out 3 holes, which was 12 fourths, 13 fourths, 14 fourths, 15 fourths. So I had 3 fourths left over. So now I have to compare these two. And I'm looking at, they have the same amount of holes. So now I'm going to look at the fraction. 3/8 and 3/4. And I'm thinking, what do these fractions have in common? They have a common numerator. And when 2 fractions have a common numerator, I'm thinking, well, I'm going to get 3 pieces either way. So which piece is going to be bigger? Is a pizza cut into eighths going to have bigger slices, or a pizza cut into fourths? And I know that the same hole cut into fourths or eighths, fourths are bigger. So if I'm going to get 3 of either size, I know that 3/4 would be a lot more than 3/8. So we would say Jimmy ran farther. If common numerators had you confused, you could also have turned these into common denominators. So I'm going to just do a little extra over here. If you understood that with common numerators, great. That was an awesome strategy. If you're someone who needs common denominators, like a lot of us do, to compare these, let's look at how we could have done that. So I have 3 3/8, and I have 3 3/4. I know that if I multiply 4 by 2, I can get 8. So let's just cut 3/4 into eighths. I'm going to multiply by 2 over 2 because I need to multiply by just 1 whole. And I'm going to get 3 6/8, which is more than 3 3/8. So either way, Jimmy is going to run farther, whether you understood common numerators or whether you needed to make common denominators to compare these. Both are good strategies, and both will always get you the correct answer. So if you had that Jimmy ran farther and you had the correct amounts for each person, awesome job. If you didn't, go back through, rewatch that explanation, and try to figure out where your mistake happened. We are going to stay here, and I'm going to jump into today's lesson of taking this a little bit harder and multiplying a whole number by a mixed number. So we have to use our friend the distributive property today. Remember, the distributive property tells me I want to take my number and I want to multiply it into all the parts. So let's look at an example of what that would be. 5 times 2 and 3/5. I need to take this 5 and I need to multiply it into the whole, but I also need to multiply it into the fraction. So I'm going to do 5 times 2, and I'm going to add that to the 5 times 3/5. So that's the distributive property right there, where I take this 5 and I multiply it into the 2 and to the 3/5. So 5 times 2 is 10. And then this is what we practiced Friday, which is why Friday's lesson is really important to understand before we do today's. This would be 15/5 because I did 5 times 3 and my denominator is staying the same because the pieces are not changing. I had 3/5, I skip counted by 3/5 5 times to get 15/5. But what I need to do here is pull out my wholes. So I'm going to skip count by 5s. 5/5, 10/5, 15/5. So I was able to pull out 5/5, 5/5, 5/5. So I got 3 wholes there. So 10 wholes plus 3 wholes is 13 as my final answer. So again, distributive property means take this whole number and multiply it into both parts of the mixed number. Let's look at another one. We have 6 times 3 and 1/4. So I'm going to multiply my 6 to my 3 and to my 1/4. So 6 times 3 plus 6 times 1/4. 6 times 3 is 18. 6 times 1 is 6/4. I'm going to pull out my wholes by skip counting by 4/4 because that equals a whole. 4/4, 8/4, but 8/4 was too many. So I got 1 whole, which was 4/4, 5/4, 6/4. I had 2/4 left over. If this part confuses you and you're one of the groups that's used to pulling out all your wholes separately, go ahead and do that. You know that this is a whole and you know that this is 2/4. So I have 19 and 2/4 because I had 18 wholes here. 1 more whole here gave me 19 and my 2/4 as my fraction. If you're in group 1 and group 2 and you were practicing simplifying before we left, you would know that I could divide this by 2/2 and that 19 and 2/4 is the same as 19 1/2. Both of these are perfectly acceptable 4th grade answers. Next one, I'm going to do 8 2/3 times 7. Now this one I just wrote the opposite way. We know that we can write multiplication either way. 7 times 2/3 or 8 2/3 is the same as 8 2/3 times 7. So I'm still though going to take the whole number and multiply it into both. So I'm going to get 8 times 7 plus 2/3 times 7. 8 times 7 is 56. 2/3 times 7 is 2 times 7 is 14 thirds. 3/3 is 1 whole that I can pull out. 6/3 is 2 wholes that I can pull out. 9/3 is 3 wholes that I can pull out. 12/3 is 4 wholes that I can pull out. And if I do another, I'm going to get to 15/3, and that's too many. So I got 4 wholes, and that was 3, 6, 9, 12/3. So I need to get to 14. 13/3, 14/3. So I had 2 more thirds. We have 56 plus 4 is 60, and 2/3 as my final answer here. All right, and our last problem of this little mini lesson is Miss Murray uses 2½ cups of flour in each batch of brownies. How much flour will she need to make 7 batches? So I'm thinking this 2½ is being repeated for 7 batches, so I'm doing it 7 times. So I'm going to take my 7, distribute it into my 2 and my 1/2, so I have 7 times 2 plus 7 times 1/2, that's 14, plus 7 times 1 is 7 halves. When I'm pulling out my wholes, I'm going to skip count by 2 halves because that's a whole. 2 halves, 4 halves, 6 halves, 8 halves, too much, I only have 7. So I could pull out 3 wholes, that was 6 halves, and 1 more half gives me 7 halves. So I have 14 plus 3 is 17 and a half cups. I don't have the space, but on your paper, anytime you have a word problem, I want to see a complete sentence that answers the question. So great job following along with this. We are now going to get a chance for you to do some independent practice problems, and then for you to show me your work with an exit ticket. Remember, when you get to the exit ticket and you're finished with it, take a picture and have someone at home text it to me so that I can see the awesome work you've been doing, and I'll text back what your grade would be, just like I would if I was grading your folder at school. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. Try that again. There we go. And I want you to read through these, take some time to work them out. So go ahead now and pause your video and resume when you are finished. Here are the answers to those practice problems. And here are your 2 exit ticket problems, or 3 exit ticket problems, sorry. Take some time to work through these. I want to see neat, organized work, complete sentence answers to any word problems. All the steps that I modeled on my board should be steps that you model in your exit ticket. And again, once you're finished, go ahead and text me a picture of your awesome hard work. I'm so proud of you guys. Thanks for sitting through another lesson. And I will be back Wednesday with our second lesson of the week. Have a fabulous day. See you guys soon.